A lot of times we get in this bad pattern in heterosexual relationships where women invest, right? It becomes a very one-sided relationship. They're doing all of the work and getting not enough benefit. And that's just not fair.
All right, Garrett, today we're going to be talking about the 3 signs you're wasting time with the wrong man. Do you ever feel like you're wasting time with the wrong podcast host? Do you ever feel that
way? In a world full of all the podcast host options, I have settled on you.
You've settled. Wow, you've settled. Ladies, if a man ever says that to you, dump him. Gary, I'm about to dump you, dude. You're out.
Now, do you feel like you've wasted time?
Gary, you don't deserve me. All right. I'm a high value podcast host. You don't deserve me. Oh my gosh. Well, this is going to be a really important one for all the ladies out there who are feeling like maybe they're wasting time, just bouncing from guy to guy to guy. And so we're going to give you some signs that you are wasting time with the wrong types of guys and how to stop wasting time moving forward. So I want to start this out by just talking about what does it mean to really waste time? Well, I personally think that time is only wasted when you continue to invest in a man or in a person with the full certainty that it won't last. Right, Gary? When you're just continuously investing time and energy, when you know in the back of your mind, this isn't right for you.
Yeah, I mean, when you're making the wrong decision, it's like one of those, who knows? The internet says Einstein said it, but the insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly, hoping for a different outcome. That is wasting time. But ultimately, time is there to teach us. Time is a teacher. And so sometimes we need a little bit of time. We need a little bit of experience to learn some lessons. Just for anybody listening, think back 3 years, 5 years, what you've learned across those years and how much that has helped you grow as a person. Time and experience are doing that for you.
Yeah, I think it's really important to give yourself some grace if you have wasted time. I think a lot of people will date someone for a year, 2 years, even be married for 10 years and be like, oh, I wasted all of that time. And I get it. I couldn't imagine being married to someone for 10 years and then it ends and feeling that. And I would understand if you felt that way. But ultimately, it's very important to reframe that as it really was a learning experience. Everything we do in life is just a constant learning and growing from those experiences. And honestly, it's really hard to learn a lesson without wasting some time learning that lesson, right? And that's true in any area of life, honestly.
Yeah, but again, though, if you're going to learn a lesson from it, is it really wasted time?
Right.
And so the key is it's really up to you to make sure that the time's wasted or not. Time's going to pass anyway. So that's a constant, right? And so we're always going to spend time. Whether it's wasted or not is ultimately up to us and how we utilize, interpret that information and how many insights we gain from it.
Yeah, exactly. So the initial lesson of all of this is if you did feel like you wasted time, quote unquote, then take the lesson that you can learn from that wasted time so that you don't continue to waste time. All right. That is the ultimate overarching idea here. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't take those lessons and they just continue repeating the same pattern over and over again. And of course, expecting different results. So I want to start this by talking about some of the signs, kind of whittled it down to the 3 biggest signs that you are wasting time with the wrong person. The first one I would say is that you are the investor. You are constantly putting all of your emotional energy into it. You're putting in all of the effort and he is not reciprocating. Right, Gary?
Yeah. Yeah. Every good relationship is a balance of power between 2 people. It's about equity. It's about fairness. And you should not be doing more than he is. Particularly, a lot of times we get in this bad pattern in heterosexual relationships where women invest, right? It becomes a very one-sided relationship. They're doing all of the work and getting not enough benefit. And that's just not fair.
Yeah. And they'll do it with the hope, and men do this as well in heterosexual relationships, but they'll do it with the hope that by investing more time, suddenly this dude is going to finally wake up and be like, okay, I should reciprocate. But sometimes what actually happens is the more time and effort you invest in it, the lazier he gets. It actually has a counterintuitive approach because he's like, oh, wow, she's kind of doing everything. She's planning date night. She's planning this. She's doing this for me. Wow, she brings me breakfast in bed, whatever it is. anything that I want.
Yeah.
Guess what? He just gets lazier and lazier. So if you find that you're consistently always the over investor and you're pushing and pushing and pushing and it's not working, that's the first sign. Gary, you
Well,
want to?
here's the
Please.
thing. Everybody that's listening to this has been part of a group project in school.
Oh God.
Every single person listening to this has hated being part of a group project at school. Why? Yeah. Because some people do everything and other people do nothing. And those people that are doing nothing get to sit back and do nothing because they know someone's going to pick up the slack. And what you just described, Adam, is the same thing happens in relationships. If one person's just busying themselves, doing everything to maintain the relationship, then the other person just kind of sit back and just say, you got it, babe. Right. And that's not what we want.
Such horror stories. 301 in college, junior year. It's like our biggest project. And it's like a group of 5 of us. And it's like the most important project. In hindsight, it didn't matter at all. Obviously, nothing mattered. But oh my God, I was that guy who was leading the charge. And there was a couple of people, I still remember them. Like, it's in my brain. I wanted to fire them so bad. It's like, you are fired, Donald Trump on them before he was president. And just go ham. So yeah, if you find that it feels like a school project where you're the only one writing the paper, next.
Yeah, you don't want your relationship to be a group project. You really don't. No. So the second major sign that you're wasting time is things just aren't progressing, right? Your relationship should really have forward momentum. And so if you feel like you're kind of stuck in a rut and you're just kind of spinning your wheels and really working hard, just not really going anywhere, and it's just continually this like, yeah, I'm just not ready to commit. I'm just not ready to get married. I just maybe soon. And there's just not actually any tangible evidence of things actually progressing. That's a sign that you're wasting time.
And I would say, like, relationships don't progress in a linear way. Like, the best analogy I could think of off the top of my head would be like, here in Boston, we have the train, and it's like constantly stopping and going all the time. But you know that it's going to stop for a certain period of time, and it stops like every quarter mile. It's so annoying. But you know that it's going to keep moving forward at some point, and it does continue moving forward. It might take 20 minutes to go a mile, but that's okay. So long as there's some type of progression, that's important. But there are going to be ebbs. There's going to be times where the first 2 months, it progresses a lot, and then it goes into a cool down period for a couple months. That's okay. But it really, what we're saying is, if it's like going on 6 months, 12 months, a year, or 12 months, a year, 12 months, couple of years, and before you know it, you're just in the same place. You're not going in the right direction. You're not moving towards a lifelong commitment with this person. Dear God, help you. Like, I mean, that's where you don't want to be sitting at a train stop for the rest of your life. Right. You just don't. And that can happen in Boston too.
Yeah, because you're stuck in one spot. You're clearly wasting time. I think the other sign that you're wasting time is you're just constantly conflicted. You're constantly unsure. And that's not really, I mean, obviously that's not a sign of a relationship. Nobody wants that relationship. But in the best relationships, you feel confident. You're not even worried about the future, right? You know that this is going to last indefinitely. And you just have a basic trust in your partner about their intentions, and there's just not a lot to worry about.
Yeah.
And that's a good sign.
Yeah. If you're just every single night before you go to bed thinking to yourself, is he right for me? Is he wrong for me? Oh my God, I don't know. He's just like, he's so rude to everyone and yada, yada, yada. And the list just keeps coming up. Well, we got to take a real hard look at those challenges and those risks involved in the relationship. And if that conflict is just overwhelming, and if it's like 90% of the time, that's a bad look. Not to say like, look, in relationships, I think it's healthy for maybe, if I had to put a number on it, a 10% conflicted. There's always going to be something where you're like, okay, I don't know. God, that was really annoying when he left the cabinet door open, something I do very consistently. Okay, that, but it'll pass. But if it's just constant conflict in your brain and it's just one side, the devil talking to the angel, then that is a likelihood that you are wasting time in the situation and your heart is getting in the way of your head. So, and the thing is, you're not alone throughout all of this. In fact, one study showed that 56% of women struggle to find someone who meets their expectation. And this is compared to only 35% of men feel this way. So women in particular are finding that they're wasting time with the wrong guys that might not be meeting their expectations.
Yeah, and it's not surprising that people can feel like they're wasting time with this, because relationships are really one of the biggest, if not the biggest decision of your entire life. It's the one decision that impacts every other facet of your life. And so it's something you don't want to mess around with. It's something you want to take seriously. And it's obviously something you don't want to waste time on. One, because you don't want to waste time, but you also want to get to the good part as soon as possible, right? I mean, there's just that sort of built-in eagerness to find your person and start the rest of your life. And so we want to get there as soon as possible, and anything that holds us back makes us feel like we're wasting time.
Exactly. So the real question, Gary, is how do we stop wasting time if this has been a consistent pattern? Well, we've put together 4 key steps to take or things to think about so that you don't continue repeating these patterns and you do learn from previous mistakes. And by the way, again, we've all been there. But let's jump into the first one. The first one is, this is incredibly important, and we recommend all of our clients when we start working with them, is to assess what we call your dating and relationship information diet. What information are you taking in? Is your information the equivalent of eating Sour Patch Kids every single night and going to bed with a bellyache? Right, which I love to do, by the way. Is it just full of junk food? You're getting advice from your, crystal reality TV. If you're getting advice from The Bachelor or Love Island or Love is Blind, which is one of my new favorite television shows, social media, your weird, quirky aunt who's like she's been divorced 3 times, has no idea about relationships. If that's where you're getting all of your advice, don't be surprised if your behaviors are not yielding results, because just like your diet's quality dictates your energy levels, your relationship inputs really matter a lot.
Yeah, it's like this old saying that computer programmers had, at least I learned in probably like 7th grade back in the 1900s: garbage in, garbage out, right? It's like you put some relationship garbage into your brain and you're relying on that information, you're going to make bad decisions. And that's going to lead you to wasting time. Literally just last night on one of our mastermind sessions, somebody asked me if they thought it was a good idea that they were joining a bunch of Instagram social media things for single women of whatever county they lived in.
I've
She
gotten
said,
that a lot lately. That's
yeah.
interesting.
She said, I just felt like I wanted to hear if what other people were going through. And so what she quickly found was a bunch of women on this particular Instagram account basically just saying how terrible dating was. There are no men here. There's blah, blah, blah. She said, I felt really validated. It's like, yeah, I understand that. But social media is an echo chamber. And so once you get 2 people that feel bad about anything, and then they both talk to each other, then it's like you get validated in feeling negative about something, and then you feel more appropriate about expressing those feelings, and it just heightens and heightens and heightens, and it sort of blocks out the other side, which is maybe we're all doing something wrong.
Right.
And and this, not surprising, it was a client that had just started the program, and so
Gave her
that's
some
what we're
grace.
here for. I mean, that's what we're here for, is like, some of those things that people think are a good idea, like, oh, I'll find other people with similar problems, that's going to make me feel better. It can actually hold you back and lead you to wasting even more time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot about this idea of victim mentality versus ownership mentality. And a victim mentality is this idea where woe is me, everyone else is the problem, men are the problem, dating apps are the problem, yada, yada, yada. And there's truth to all of that. I'm not saying that there isn't, but that is a mentality. An ownership mentality is saying, I can't control any of that stuff. The only thing I can control is myself. And so the thing is, if you put a group of victims, people with victim mentality in a room, they're just going to get deeper and deeper into victim mentality. But if you put a person who has a victim mentality into a room full of owners, which is basically what love strategies is, people who are like, hey, look, I can't control that stuff. All I can control is myself and my strategy. Mm-hmm. Suddenly they become an owner, because we're social creatures, and whatever it is that the mentality of the group, we just tend to adopt. And so it's very, very important. And I can see this in my own life, to surround yourself with people who have ownership mentality, who are true winners, who take responsibility for their own actions, rather than people who are just constantly victimized.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, that same county where this woman lives, there is no other Instagram group for all the women who have found men. to get
Right.
together and be like, hey, I won, I took control, I took charge, I did this very intentional process, and it was very like there. Those groups just don't exist because those kinds of Facebook social media groups all center typically around negative aspects.
Of
And
course.
so, if you could find a group where it was all people successful that were following the same strategy and things, like, yeah, hang out with that social media group. It's just when it comes to this kind of stuff, those tend not to exist.
It feels good to vent. I get it. Like a
It
good
does.
vent feels
Yeah.
good, but too much venting and being surrounded by other venting is a huge no-no. And that was something like when with our community, we have a thriving community of clients who connect. They use it basically like Instagram. Like we tell them, get rid of Instagram. It's not going to help with your confidence anyways. Use our community instead. And I was concerned when we first started doing this many, many years ago, 10 years ago, that it would just be a vent session. And what we did is early on shut that down pretty quickly. If someone was just being non-productive venting, we would help them instead. And now it's amazing to see that like that's just not part of the culture of how we do things. It's very rare that we just see mindless venting. Venting, I think, can be helpful when it's like, okay, finally you're frustrated. It's okay. And then everyone chimes in and is like, the opposite. Like, you got this, girl. You're going to be okay. Like, there are good guys. I found love. And that type of reinforcement is so powerful versus people who just respond and are just like full of negativity. So just be very, very mindful of who it is that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to throw in a few examples of bad advice that I would say is bad advice that is very common out there. Gary, I'm not sure if you agree or disagree. Number one, opposites attract. Number
Horrible.
two is jealousy means that they love you. Ooh, I've heard that one before.
Horrible.
And the final one is just let love find you. Just sit back and hope that love will come when you least expect it. That was it. Those are kind of my three least favorite common pieces of dating advice that I think are completely useless.
Totally agree with that entire list.
Yeah.
And this is why people need to go on a relationship information diet, right? Just make sure you're cutting out the crap and focus on only high quality information, because that's going to help you move forward and avoid wasting time.
Amen. So step two, and this is kind of a harsh one, but if you want to stop wasting time, be callously decisive. Okay. I found a quote by Gordon Graham, and he says, decision is a sharp knife that cuts clean and straight. Indecision is a dull one that hacks and tears and leaves ragged edges behind it. And how many of us have a relationship past full of hacks and tears and ragged edges behind it? Right, Gary?
Yeah. And I think, this is tough, but necessary in the sense that so many women their entire life have been socialized to be kind, to give the benefit of the doubt. And I know when we talk to our community of women, it's very hard for them to hurt somebody else's feelings or feel like they're disappointing somebody else. And so it all comes out of this place of just amazing kindness and compassion. But like anything else, there's a time and a place for this. And so, what I always suggest to women who give the benefit of the doubt later in the relationship, just not early. Early, he hasn't earned the right to give the benefit of the doubt, right? You want to be more, like you put it callously, decisive. Benefit of the doubt's fine, but just he's got to earn it, right? I mean, that's a later down the road kind of problem. And I think, when we say callousness, it's really about trying to convince people to just be a little bit more objective, a lot more self-protective, and really, this idea, like I said, been socialized to, gain approval and be nice to everybody. But here's the thing: disappoint your partner before you disappoint yourself. And so often people spend a lot of time trying not to disappoint others, and they don't pay attention to themselves. And that's actually the most important relationship you're ever going to have, is the one you have with yourself. So you got to put yourself first.
Yeah. And sometimes it might feel callous, but increasing your callousness and being sometimes a little more insensitive, or what might feel like insensitive, it can feel cruel at the time, but it's actually doing him and you a favor, right? This is so, so important because you really do have all the power throughout all of this. And I think women very easily forget this when they're in a relationship, that you are the chooser. You're not the chaser. You're the chooser. You decide who gets to be in your life and who does not. You are the prize. And so be callously decisive when you might be dating someone and he's a nice guy. Oh, those are the worst, right? When they're a really good person, but they don't want the same thing. They want to go live on a farm 80 miles away, a mile away from any other human being. And you're like a city girl, and it's not going to add up. He doesn't want kids. You want to have kids. Callously decisive, callously break it off, end it, move on.
One thing I'll add to this, and what I suggest to our clients all the time is they say, I don't want to hurt his feelings.
Yeah.
I feel bad hurting his feelings. So understand that's because you're a nice person. But closure is kindness, because by making it clear to him that you're not his person, you now help propel him one step closer to finding the woman out there who really is his person. And so do you want to stand in the way of that? Well, that's not very kind. Right. Yeah. And so, you just have to kind of think like there's different sides to kindness. And so you want to just think a little bit more holistically, a little bit more 360 view of the whole thing. Because sometimes what you're trying to do that's kind might have some unintended consequences.
It might be unkind, honestly. Yeah. It might be unkind. So step 3 is to avoid wasting time. When in doubt with a guy, zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. Gary, you were talking earlier about how successful people think in years, not in weeks or months. Why don't you talk more about that?
Yeah, I think, when you want to be successful in anything, right? And so like an easy example is like stock market investing. You don't want to think about like how things are going to do in the next couple of days or even weeks. You want to plan long-term, right? Long-term thinking is the path to success. And the same is true in relationships. And this is actually one of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is they optimize for the next few days and few weeks and what's going to be the best then, and then they just kind of like leave the future to chance. And so that's a great way to waste time, because those early parts of relationships are actually the easy part, right? Mm. Good partners, bad partners are all pretty good at the early part, because that's how you form relationships. It's where's he going to be? What kind of person is this going to be in 6 months? What about in 6 years? What about in 30 years? And so that's the when in doubt, zoom out and like think bigger picture, broader, because that time gives you this ability to have compounding interest. Building good communication, for example. Is he a fantastic communicator? Now, early in a relationship, it doesn't matter that much because you're having fun and everything's great. But when you have problems, and you will have problems, can you communicate? Can you solve those things? And so thinking long-term helps you emphasize the traits that truly matter.
And humans are so bad at thinking long-term. We're just not designed for it. I mean, humans are not really designed to be happy necessarily. Like we're just not designed for it. We're designed to survive and procreate, have lots of babies, and that's pretty much it. And then in 7 years, you kind of move on, right? And the reality is we live for a long time now. Like I think the average lifespan for most of human history is like 35, 40. We'd both be dead, Gary. Dead, yep. Gone later. All right. We'd probably be eaten by I don't know, a woolly mammoth or something. I don't know if they ate people, but we'd probably be killed by it, because I'm certainly not that athletic. I think you're more athletic, so you'd probably make it a little longer. But needless to say, we're just not designed for a 50-year relationship and making that last. And so if that is what you want, is a lifelong relationship, we need to sometimes override those initial instincts for procreation that exists. And that's why we say, when in doubt, zoom out. Zoom out on your life. Zoom out on what it is that you're going to be saying when you're 85, sitting across from this man, and think to yourself, was he really the right person for me? Yeah, those first 3 weeks were great, but then I had to spend 30 years with him, 40 years, depending on how old you are. And so it's a tool that you can use really for any decision making, any decision you need to make in your life, is just kind of zoom out on your life. Because it's just not something that is natural to humans.
I just can't get the visual out of my head of us trying to run from a woolly mammoth. And I keep thinking like, And now I'm thinking, like, could I outrun a woolly mammoth? And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I don't need to outrun the woolly mammoth. I just need to outrun Adam. And then, and then I'm fine.
Oh man, you would totally outrun me. You run
I'm
like
like, I
every
think I got
day.
it. I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, I would have my spear. I would throw it. I'd miss. I'd be like, look at Gary. And be like, dude, what do we do now? And he's just running. And I'm like, oh no, I'm dead. Goodbye. So what? At least I procreated, likely
Yeah,
at that point.
fight
Because
fight or flight, baby. I'm out of there.
All right, Gary, why don't you take us to step 4? Lead us to the home.
Sure.
Home plate.
Step 4 is don't lower your standards, increase your patience. And I know, like, some of you have just heard me say patience. You're like, wait a second, we're trying not to waste time. But I promise you that by being more patient, you will waste less time, right? You're going to be more efficient because everyone wants to find the love of their life as soon as possible. And that creates a sense of urgency and it creates a sense of rushing. And I don't know about you, but if I'm in a rush, I make more mistakes, right? I don't fully assess. We just talked about zooming out. I don't zoom out. You focus in, you get tunnel vision, and you start focusing on single things and things that are the most expeditious, the things that are going to get you there as fast as possible, but not necessarily things that are the best. And that's a major problem.
Yeah. I've had a lot of clients worked with over the years who are late 30s, early 40s. I mean, the vast majority of our clients are 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. But we pretty regularly get clients who are kind of at the end of the childbearing years and will join and say, I need to meet a guy. I've kind of done the math. I talked to my doctor within the next 6 months, or else this ain't happening. And the first thing we need to do is get that out of your mind, because the worst thing that will happen is for you to procreate with a man who is awful for you, right? That's the worst of all scenarios, right? There are other options you can do with freezing eggs and so on and so forth, and be able to at least elongate your kind of window there. But even if you are still trying to find a guy in 6 months, having that in your mind that you need to find someone in 6 months is only going to put pressure on the situation and lead you to making bad decisions. So it really does require an immense amount of action, which is something we very much so promote with what we do. Like, take a ton of action very quickly, constantly meeting lots of people, go on lots of dates, learn our strategies as quickly as possible, implement this stuff, get results quickly, but all the while be extremely patient with that feedback loop, because it really can take some time to know that it's working. Now, some clients will join and hey, 6 weeks later, they've met the man of their dreams, and me and Gary get to pat each other on the back and say, oh my God, we are geniuses. Some clients might take 6, 9 months, and that's okay. That's 6 to 9 months to be with someone for the rest of your life. That ain't bad. Okay. We go to 4-year college just to get a degree that is, sorry, I know I'm talking to a professor, but is sometimes questionable if it even does anything for you. Sorry, Gary, that wasn't a dig at you. That's more of a university system. I'm all for degrees if they're helpful or useful. They're just some. What do you think about that?
I think the students that go to college and take it seriously, it's always a good thing.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a degree that's completely useless, but I can't think of one right now. Maybe like art, master's in art. Sorry. But this is a total digression right now. And I'm sweating talking to Professor Gary right now, talking about this. So, anyways,
here's the thing about wasting time.
Yes. Yeah. Where was I?
When you're in a rush, particularly in the dating context, when you're in a rush, like I said, you already make bad decisions, but in the dating context, when you're putting time pressure on yourself, it also gives you this sense of needy desperation.
Yes.
Right. And that is not a good energy to put out into the dating world, because the wrong guys that are out there prey on needy desperation. And so it not only leads to bad decisions for you, but it also attracts the wrong kind of guy, which is problematic. I do think Adam's point about, in the grand scheme of things, 6 to 9 months in the course of your life and the next 50 years of your life, that's just that's the smallest time investment. And so when you zoom out again, right, like that amount of time, you don't have to rush. Like 9 months is a long time, right? Like you don't rush it, ease into it. And the best way to make use of that 9 months is to just have your priorities straight, right? We talk to our clients all the time about having a love vision, and it's really about this idea that you can have anything. You just probably are not going to get everything. And
Yeah.
making sure that the anything that you're looking for is the most important things. And again, the most important things for long term, because we're not just looking for any old guy. We're looking for the right guy. We're looking for that 50-year relationship, long term, stable, predictable, dependable, supportive, good listener, good communicator, all that great stuff. Like, we want the right guy. And that deserves as much time as it needs.
I'll throw a caveat. It's you can have anything, but you're definitely not going to have everything. I would go that far. You're definitely not going to have everything. I mean, there's no relationship on the planet that has everything. Now, they might have the things that you desire in your love vision, which is great, but I guarantee there are things that that man does that will annoy you for endless time. That's just the reality of humans is we're all imperfect in some way. And I love when clients come on and they're like, "Oh, I found the perfect guy. He has everything." And it's like they've gone on 3 dates. I'm like,
yeah, you just don't know him yet.
you just don't know him yet. So
give it time.
Give it some time, a little bit of patience, and that doesn't mean it can't work out. Actually, in fact, we are huge proponents of understanding your expectations, and that's what a love vision really does. Is it allows you to have a set of expectations that leads you towards a life full of love, not just a few months or a few years. So, Gary, this was amazing, great stuff. For those ladies out there who are feeling like they're wasting time, be callously decisive, move on, and open your heart to the right man. And we'll be here for you every single step of the way.
Thanks, Adam.